Welcome to the Offline Podcast. Today we're joined by a special guest, Chris Lee. He's a CEO of Solgen Power, serial entrepreneur. Solgen in 2021 was the 12th fastest growing company in the U.S. So Chris is very accomplished in that aspect. He's growing his real estate empire. He's a family man, man of faith. And thanks, Chris, for joining us and letting us use your space. This office is, super cool.
Yeah, good to have you guys. Appreciate it.
So we have an hour today, and there's a lot of questions that we have, and we'll save those kind of towards the end if we don't address them. But I guess where I really want to start is your beginning. I actually had a conversation with your brother earlier, and he gave me a couple of tidbits. But so my understanding, and we can start wherever you'd like, but from my understanding is that at 11 you found out you had diabetes.
Yeah, who told you that? My brother.
Yeah, and
most people don't know I have diabetes.
Okay.
I just choose to keep it on the DL.
Well, the reason why I'm bringing that up is because we're big on not feeling sorry for yourself and leveraging your situation to propel yourself, right? If you're in a bad place, leverage that anger, leverage that fear to propel you to get to a better place. Do you feel like when you found that out, did that propel you to, find success in some way?
Absolutely. So one thing if I ever do talk about my diabetes, I say it's one of my superpowers that I have, just because it's an advantage that I have over most people, because I was given something that was extremely difficult at a young age that required a lot of discipline. And so, and recently, so just over a year ago, my 10-year-old daughter was diagnosed with diabetes. And so one motto that I always lived by as someone with diabetes, I would say, and I tell my daughter, I say, we have diabetes, but we're not diabetics. And so just from a standpoint that that's not our identification.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times people that have cancer or diabetes or suffering with anything, they make that their identity. Right. And this is who I'm a diabetic, feel sorry for me. Life dealt me the crappy cards or whatever it may be. And so, I credit a lot of that actually. So when I was diagnosed, I was actually 10, almost 11. And I was hospitalized for a week. That's the way that they treated it back then. And so just for a clear distinction.
Yeah.
A lot of people, when they think of diabetes, they think of old fat guy.
Yeah.
Okay, that's type 2 diabetic. I'm a type 1 diabetic. And they shouldn't even call them the same, to be frank. One, you can actually heal yourself.
Yeah.
That's not mine.
Yeah.
I'm stuck with it no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Most old fat people, if they just cut down on their diet and went running, they'd be able to heal themselves. So the fact that we're considered the same or even in the same ballpark of disease kind of pisses me off.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
But anyways, I was in this hospital and I saw this video, and it was like an old VHS or whatnot, and it was about this NFL player, and he was talking about how he had diabetes, but he never let that be his identity, and like that really like helped change my life of like the way that I was gonna handle it from then on. Cool. So
yeah, that's a good point of like those, what you said, like labeling yourself. I feel like a lot of the times, I was actually talking to Arthur about this not that long ago, about humans, I feel like today tend to hold on to things, situations, or even people that don't serve them longer than we should for whatever reason. And sometimes we do it because, hey, I've known so-and-so for 20 years. We went to middle school together, and that's the reason for continuing that relationship. But sometimes we hold on, and there's people that say, hey, in middle school, you were this way, or you always did this, and it's a label that you kind of sit with. And that's just interesting, actually, because people tend to hold, if you put yourself in an environment where they're like, oh yeah, in college you always partied and whatnot, you can kind of stay in that box if you let it, you know.
Yeah, that's why most people struggle with change if they don't leave their surroundings, right? Like it's because of those labels.
Yeah.
And so staying in your surroundings that gave you labels and being able to let go of that is one of the most difficult things there is.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with that. I think that change is one of those things that people think is really scary, but it's actually really healthy.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's actually more beneficial, right? Like it's actually more beneficial to be honest with someone and move on from a situation, because if they want to party and they're with people that want to party, hey, they're going to have their fun. You're not serving yourself or them if you're just staying in that situation. So anyways, I just think that's something that I've just really talked about a lot recently, just because I feel like it's a big thing for people in my circle. If they want to get to a better situation, hey, you got to evolve as a person. And that includes your surroundings as well. But so you were diagnosed with diabetes 1, for clarification, and so the next step, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean there's a big gap here, but football and wrestling were a big part of your life, right, early on. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about that and
yeah, so I mean, grew up in a household that didn't have a lot of money. Sports was pretty much everything for us. Yeah. Right. So my dad was the high school football and wrestling coach in Connell. Okay. So a small town up there. And so it was me, and there was 6 kids, and then we also raised my cousins, so there was 7 of us. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. She didn't have a job, right? Raising us was it. And so once again, we didn't have a lot of money, so I mean we passed all the time with sports. And the sports we played were all in the backyard or in the gym, right? Not a lot of sports camps or anything because we couldn't afford those things. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, sports was everything growing up. It's the way we spent our time. It's the way we learned our lessons, and along with that and work, that was pretty much it.
So you go by the QB, right?
That's right.
What's the story behind that?
That's right. It's a couple things. So I speak on stage a lot, and so Chris Lee isn't a very unique name, right?
Okay, all right.
It just isn't, right?
Yeah.
Like, so to distinguish Chris from any other Chris Lee in the world is pretty difficult, and so I had to create a stage name, and I chose to identify with what the position I used to play, and then also with the position I coached. I coached high school football for 7 years, coached quarterbacks. And so the thing that always intrigued me about the QB position is just the level of leadership and ownership that has to be taken. So, and one thing I always taught my quarterbacks was that no matter what happens on the field, it's your fault. And so receiver drops it, it's your fault. You didn't take enough reps with them before the game. Running back fumbles it, it's your fault. You didn't properly set up the lineman and they didn't make the correct block, whatever it is, right? And so, just the principles around being a quarterback have always intrigued me. Just so I took on the name of the quarterback of life, the QB of life. And so Chris Lee QB, that's been my username for pretty much anything, like Instagram, Facebook. My first email was chrisleyqb@hotmail.com.
Oh yeah, Hotmail.
So just a little of all that stuff.
Messenger.
But yeah, and then on top of that, there's not going to be any other Chris Lee QBs because there's no Asian QBs.
Got it. So you talk about extreme ownership, really, right? I mean, you're the QB, good game, bad game, it's on you.
Accountability. Big time.
Was that something that your parents instilled in you, or was that something that you saw in someone else, or how did you? What drove you to that?
Yeah, I mean, my dad always pushed high level of ownership and accountability. He didn't have a high level of education as far as like business and whatnot was concerned, but a high level of discipline and ownership for sure. And so he always instilled that in us. And so that's what always attracted me to the quarterback position. Now, the interesting thing about my football career is that as a quarterback, I didn't play quarterback my whole career. It was most of my career. But I actually had a pretty defining moment in high school when I was a junior, and Robbie Clyde, my now business partner, was a sophomore. And Robbie had never really played quarterback before then, but if you look at him, he's built like, 6'5", 220 pounds in high school.
Like Ben Roethlisberger?
Yeah, Ben Roethlisberger.
Dante Culpepper.
Yeah.
Big hoss.
And so, that year we were battling for the quarterback position, and me, God didn't bless me with a ton of height. I'm 6 foot and, good size, but.
Fuck, you're lucky. 6
foot any day.
He's 6 foot tall for some people.
6 foot any day, dog.
But yeah, no excuse. I mean, Russell Wilson's, sub 5'11", so. But yeah, so it ultimately led to a battle between me and Robbie. He ended up beating me out, and it was a pretty depressing time in my life. The previous year as a sophomore, I was the backup quarterback on varsity, and I actually played quite a bit. I played in the playoffs, and I threw 7 touchdowns on varsity. I played more varsity as a sophomore than I did as a junior, and so that was and I went through just a season of ultimate depression where I just I couldn't even throw anymore.
Yeah,
I was so mental about it, and I felt like I had done everything in my power to win that position. I'd given up baseball as a sophomore, which I had played my whole life, in order to hit the weight room, get faster, stronger, and develop as a quarterback. And then ultimately the coaches, they were split decision on it, but they ended up going with Robbie, who was younger but more athletic. And so that was extremely difficult. And I pouted on the sidelines for a long time.
Yeah,
I did. And then after that season, it was a defining moment where I had a decision to make whether I was just going to, because ever since I was a young kid, I had just 2 goals, and one of them was to win a state championship, a football state championship, and it wasn't win a football state championship as a quarterback. It was win a football state championship. And so after that season, I had to regroup and figure out okay, is it more important to be a quarterback, or is it more important to win a state championship? And so I told myself, all right, I'm not going to allow anybody else to decide my outcome. I'm going to continue to work my butt off and do this. And so I said, not only am I going to start, but I'm going to switch positions. And so I hit the weight room one more time, put on another 30 pounds, and then I was a starting right guard.
There you
Right
go.
guard. I thought you were going to say safety, linebacker, quarterback the D.
Right guard and middle
guard's important,
and middle linebacker. So I was Seattle Times all state middle linebacker that year, but ultimately ended up winning state championship. It was the first state championship ever in Continental history, and since then we've had several out there. But yeah, so it was a very defining moment in my life in which I had to decide whether I was going to let others determine the ultimate outcome, or if I could just. I don't know if you've ever read the book Above the Line by Urban Meyer.
I have not.
Fantastic book. So one of the equations he uses in that book that he teaches his team is called E+R=O, and it stands for event plus response equals outcome. And ultimately, the definition of it is we don't control the events in our lives, right? Good things, bad things, anything that happens to us, we can't control, right? The weather, can't control. Coach going with another guy, can't control. Economy failing, can't control, right? Ultimately, in order for us to get the outcome that we desire, the only thing that we can control is the response. And so, and now that was the first time in my life. I'd never read the book at that point in my life, but where I really saw that equation to be true, and the way that I responded to the event of coaches going with somebody else, me only being blessed with 6 feet, and whatever it was, and so, but ultimately just found a new route to achieve the same outcome.
Yeah, sweet. I mean, that's exactly what I was talking about, leveraging your situation, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Especially because you're talking about identity too. And so being hit with that fact of like, hey, you couldn't control that. You couldn't control what happened, but your response was, putting in that work. So that's, yeah. It's on par with
Not
that.
to get too off course, but Urban Meyer, great college coach.
Yeah.
What happened with the Jags?
Hey,
what do you think?
too many big heads in the NFL.
Yeah.
Young minds are still moldable, still respectful of leaders. I mean, granted, great leaders make great NFL coaches as well, but I think you can only mold that so much, and the draft also is a distinguishing factor. So I think one of the beauties of being a college football coach is you literally get a handpick who's on your team, right? You go out, you recruit. You have a lot more selection power than you do in the NFL.
Especially at the programs that he was at.
Right.
Later years, Florida, Ohio State.
Ohio State, right.
He has all the pick in the world.
Yep, exactly.
Do you at this age were you business minded? Were you thinking about businesses at that age?
No, so I grew up wanting to be a doctor. So I came from a unique circumstance. My mom's side of the family was wealthy. My grandpa, my mom's dad, was a doctor, and my dad's side of the family was what you'd call white trash, and so it was very unique in the way that they came together, and so it was a very cool mix for us as kids. The fact that like I learned to dream from my mom, and I learned how to work hard and be disciplined from my dad.
Nice.
And so it was just like a perfect, unique, and if you look at like the way all six of us turned out as kids, it's like a direct testament to them for sure. And so with that, in my mind, the only way you made money was being a doctor, growing up. And so I was like, I want to do that. I want to make a lot of money. I don't know how I was going to make a lot of money. I just knew I wanted to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was my goal from an early age. Like I talked about it since I was like 5 years old that I was going to be a doctor. And my whole life was mapped out. Like I'm always been ones that like map out goals early on and like this is what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. Like age 12, I had all my money saved up for my diamond ring for my wife.
Nice.
Because I knew, and I didn't know who she was, but I knew that I wanted to get married, and that was a very important thing to me, right? And so I had all that money taken care of, put aside by age 12, right? That was like done. Yeah. And I as a religious person, so I ended up serving a 2-year mission for my church. I saved up all the money and worked hard. I paid for that all in advance before I went out on a mission. So like all these different things. So going and being a doctor was part of the check off. And so everything I was doing, I did running start at CBC my junior and senior year because I knew if I could get 2 years of college out quickly, that would speed up the process of becoming a doctor. Yeah. And so, which is funny because anybody that knows me now is like, I laugh at degrees. And so
that's what I want to talk about too, is your thoughts on college, because that's changed. Because for me, that was just drilled into my head. Like you are going to finish high school and you're going to go to college because that's the only way you can be successful here in America.
Absolutely. And so that was the route that I was going on. So after high school, I went on a 2-year mission, came home, immediately jumped into my junior year in college and was studying to be a doctor. And I was getting really good grades. I was treating it like a full-time job. I would do door-to-door sales during the summers. So I'd work 3.5 months of the year. My first year I made $65,000 doing that in 3.5 months. My second year doing that, I made $105,000. Knocking doors.
There you go.
What were you selling, just for the viewers?
So yeah, first year was pest control. Second year was alarm systems. Yep. And so that's where I realized I'm pretty good at this. Like pretty good at sales and business and stuff. So.
Wait, I want to ask you, I want to dive more into like the college thing and sales, but backing up a little bit. So you went on a 2-year mission. I'm sure there's a lot there.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was that? I mean, what was that experience like?
So that is where I was able to take like my work ethic that I had built up growing up. So backing up, the rule in my household growing up, because my dad didn't make a lot of money, was at the age of 12, we had to provide for ourselves besides underwear and food on the table. So like clothes, cars, activities, dates, gas, anything, right? Like outside of underwear and food on the table, right? And we're talking basic food, lentils, rice, crap like that. Was was on us. And so I learned how to work real hard growing up. And so going on a mission, I was able to not only apply that work ethic, but then I realized like I also had a talent for creating efficiencies and not just working hard, but working smart. And that's where I think really a lot of, actually just prior to my mission, I sold Cutco knives.
I did too.
Yeah.
I did too.
They almost got me.
I wasn't, honestly, I wasn't that great at selling Cutco knives.
Yeah. And, I only did it for like 3 or 4 weeks, but I made like $3,000.
There you
And I realized I could walk into any farmer's wife's house and walk out with a $1,500 check for knives. I'm like, I'm pretty good at this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Do you think you just had a good connection with people, or what do you attribute that to?
I don't know if it was like negotiation skills from growing up in a large family or, just having to fight for everything I ever got.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. But yeah, just I've always loved people, loved negotiating. My dad was always super cheap and tried to get a deal, and that like was instilled in me. Like the art of negotiation was something cool.
So when you walked in anywhere, you were done deal. Probably that you were just committed to making that sell.
Yeah.
Like mindset wise.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like it was never like a question of if, it was just how.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, that's kind of where. So going on a mission kind of refined a lot of those techniques. As a missionary, you're knocking on a lot of doors.
Yeah.
You're essentially selling something that not everybody is interested in.
Yeah.
And learning how to position it in a way that helps people see things from your point of view.
Where did you go?
Oklahoma.
Okay.
Yeah, Spanish speaking.
All right.
Hablo español.
Yeah. No, that's what everyone says. You became fluent through that.
Became fluent in my mission, and then I also fairly fluent in Marshallese.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We might have to go half the show bilingual. We'll have to split it up. That's our demographic. Most of our demographic, man. Being serious. So.
Orale.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. So, all right. So now you went on your mission.
Yes.
You came back. You did a couple of years.
So first of all, when I get home,
yeah.
because like I said, I'm very goal centric.
Yeah.
I married my high school sweetheart.
Nice.
And so just 2.5 months after I came home. So got married at age 21. She had just turned 20. Okay. And yeah. So,
sweet.
So that I think is an important
for sure
to talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, especially in today's age, right? I feel like it's I don't even know how to summarize it, but I feel like the dating world's just different today. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, this was pre-cell phone. I mean,
swipe right.
MSN Messenger was happening back then. You guys aren't
Chris Lee QB.
That was Messenger. Enough to remember that.
Some might say that was your.
I remember a little bit, tail end.
Some might say that was your biggest sell, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Landon, for sure, and she's amazing. The fact, that she stuck with me through. It's been crazy over the last. We've been married just over 17 years, and it's been a whirlwind.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a little bit. How important is it to have a partner like that through going through life?
Like without her, I wouldn't be here for sure. Like she just supports me, and her energy that she gives me of just like calmness, because like she's much more calm than me, and I'm a little crazy, and so I need some nice balance and someone I can go home and cry on somebody's shoulder essentially, and take away a lot of my worries and pains and stresses, and she's always been super supportive of me, just 100% believer and cheerleader behind me, never questioned anything.
That's awesome.
And so, I got very lucky.
Yeah, it's super important because I feel like having that support system too is so crucial to be able to make those bigger leaps and do bigger and better things, knowing that you've got someone in your corner, fighting for you.
And let me say something that's probably controversial with this crowd. Maybe, I don't know. I think you need to get married as young as possible, because people get way too self-absorbed the longer that they're single. And so I think a lot of the reasons why my relationship works with my wife is because we were so young and dumb that we had no idea what anything that other potential out there was, right? And so we have nothing to compare it to. So we've learned together, we've figured it out together, right? Rather than having like multiple crazy relationships and like, well, I don't like it this way or you like it that way, whatever, right? Like just so I think that's probably the best advice I could give to anybody.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's controversial. I mean, Brandon just got engaged.
Yep.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So he has his wedding next year, and these guys have been in long-term relationships. I'm the only single one not taking your advice.
Yeah, I was just gonna, I didn't want to call you out, but you said
it's fine. No, it's
like
fine.
take Chris Lee's.
No, it's
advice,
interesting
man.
too, because I mean, there's a lot of controversial characters out there. Andrew Tate's one of them, and he's like opposite of that, and he's deemed as toxic masculinity, right? And that's that world. So it's kind of cool to see the other side of it as well. I don't know. It's an interesting topic, I guess.
Yeah, lots. I mean, debatable on both sides.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's important, just growing together, like you were saying, figuring your own self out, because I feel like people use that as an out, like, oh, I got to work on myself, like I got to be single, I got to figure myself out, but like
they got to figure themselves out, figure out their finances, have all these things in place.
There's always an excuse.
Dude, I had less than $1,000 in my bank account. I had a 1991 Ford Thunderbird that was worth $1,000, and I owed the guy $1,000 for it. So like my net worth was zero at the point that we got married.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Wow.
Well, I think we're gonna get into that too. The story of kind of, because you'll tee it off, but story-wise, like bankruptcy and all that. So
yeah.
There's a key part to where he is now.
Yeah, we're on the timeline here. So you get back from your mission, you get married, and then it's CBC, right?
No, so CBC was Running Start in high school.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
I went to BYU.
Okay.
Yep, and was planning on being a doctor. Went and had 2 very successful summers knocking doors, and I had a professor that was like trying to sell us away from the fact of being doctors. He's like, socialized medicine is going to be taken over, and you don't want to be stuck with all the student debt and only making $80,000 a year. And I'm like, you're right. And so eventually I decided to drop out of that program. I was in my senior year, getting ready to take the MCAT, and dropped out, took the prereqs to get into the Marriott School of Management. I don't know. So like Marriott, the hotels.
Yeah.
He's a big BYU guy, or he was a big BYU guy when he was alive. So the business school is named after him.
Okay.
Anyways, got into that program, did a semester, and then dropped out to start my first business.
Okay.
So
so let's talk about that.
What was that leap like?
I don't know. I've never been one to like doubt any decision that I make. I'm a pretty confident dude. So it wasn't too scary. I think a lot of people, when they go to start the first business, there's a lot of fear. Of course, there's fear from anyone, but up until that point, I had success in everything that I put my head down to. Like success with my marriage, success in sales, success as a missionary, success in sports. I'm just like, this is life. Just full commit, and it's going to work. And so unfortunately it didn't. So that very first business, I went off of what, for anybody that's ever read the E-Myth, stands for the entrepreneur myth. I was caught with that bug of like, I'm be my own boss. I already know how to do everything. I'm great at sales. Why wouldn't I be successful in this? And so I thought I had it figured out, and that the owner of my current business was just collecting a check on me, and so 24 years old, I'm like, all right, let's do this. And I go and I raise capital in order to do so, go to 2 investors, and tried going to a few people, but the only people I could convince was my father and my father-in-law. And so they both invested in my business.
Yeah.
My father-in-law was a successful dairy farmer, and he put $1 million in my business. And then my dad, so this was in 2008, And I don't know how old you guys are, but '08 wasn't a great economic time.
No.
And so, but I was so like self-deceived around like this myth, this entrepreneur myth, right? This bug that I was blind to reality, and I was going full for. And so what had just happened with my dad is he had always invested a lot of money. He had $800,000 in his retirement. The market had just cut it in half because of the market plunge. He decides to take it out at the bottom. Where if he would have just held on for 6 more months, he would have gone right back up.
Yep.
He took it out at the bottom, invested half of that into my business. He put $200,000 into my business. And anyways, I think you had something.
I had a question because me and Bailey were talking about this yesterday.
Yeah. What
What were those conversations like? How do you convince someone to do that?
Dude, I can sell ice to an Eskimo. I've always been just so convicted in things that I do, like that, like I know this is going to work. And so, I've always been really good with numbers. And so put together spreadsheets and showed these guys like, hey, your $1 million is going to turn into 5 million, 10 million, over the next few years, and showed them exactly how it was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And that's where I first coined the phrase spreadsheet millionaire, right? There's a lot of spreadsheet millionaires out there of like, oh, it's already in the bag. It's already going to happen, right? Like all I got to do is go and execute.
Yeah, look at the growth rate.
Yeah, look at the growth rate. We haven't even launched yet, but it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So anyways, so the conversations were, hey, look at the spreadsheet. You've seen the success I've had. I'm going to have success, right? And I'll put my, I'll put my name behind it that like your money is good with me. And so that's where we started. We had 1.2 million in seed capital, gave them equity in the business. And then I had 2 other active business partners. They were guys that I had worked with at my previous business. And, we went in believing that we were going to take over the world. And, first year in business, it was the worst economic year in most people's lifetimes. The only thing that was worse was back in the Great Depression.
Yeah.
And so, and I can't blame it all on that at all. Like a lot of terrible choices on my side. Poor partnerships, was doing things to compete rather than doing things that were best for the business, doing things to impress others rather than what was best for the business. Just a lot of just terrible things. And it got down to it. So at first year in business, like we were barely operating break even. And that was like after the capital had been fully invested. And so we were basically 1.2 million in debt, as you'd say. We shifted business models, to pivot a little bit to be able to keep it going. My one business partner stopped showing up to work. My other business partner wasn't really willing to get his hands dirty. But the biggest blow to our business was when there was a company that bought so we sold home security systems.
Okay.
We'd install them, and then somebody would buy the monitoring contract from us. Okay. That's where we got all of our money to pay for the equipment, pay our employees, everything.
Got it.
And so they were feeling the financial pinches too, the company that bought our monitoring contracts. And so they came to us and they said, hey, we can only buy 100 contracts a month. We needed 120 to break even. And so that was bad. But to top it all off, they had a UCC1 lien filed against our business, which meant that we could not sell those contracts to anybody else. And so we were in a rock and a hard place. The only solution to that was if we went and operated in a region where they did not purchase contracts. So I convinced my now business partner, Daryl Kelly, to move. So Daryl wasn't working with me at the time. He was working in a different industry. Daryl was actually my first door-to-door sales manager back in pest control.
Okay.
And so I convinced him to move back to Washington. We're living in Utah at the time. And we were both from here originally. And so we came back and we were doing everything to keep this business going, everything. And so we had to set up like a separate corporation that was so we could sell these contracts to someone else. But what happened is the 100 contracts that we were doing from from this other, my other business partner that was still showing up drove it into the ground, and like it just went away. And then me and Daryl were up here running one of our offices, and we were basically sending all profits, all revenue to keep the company afloat. Like we were hardly paying ourselves anything, just basically paying our basic bills. And it came like 6 months into it, Daryl comes to me, he's like, dude, I just can't do this anymore. Had we done this ourselves, we'd be, fairly profitable, because we were sending like 40 grand a week down to Utah to just keep the bills paid. Yeah. Keep leases. And of course, because I'm the one that had the good credit, my name was on everything. And so I'm trying to like keep that, right? I've always operated from the fact that I basically could do business as on a handshake. I'm a man of my word, right? Like if my name's behind it, it's going to get paid.
Yeah.
And so, we're in this position where Daryl's like, hey dude, I can't do this anymore. And without Daryl, can't keep the business going, right? And so I had an extremely difficult choice to make at that point. And I think when it all came to a head was when I got a phone call one day from a collection agency, and they're like, hey, you're $400,000 past due on your equipment bill. And I'm like, what? Like, how's that possible? Like, my bookkeeper's paying you every month. And they're like, no, she's not. My bookkeeper so happened to be my business partner's wife, who was embezzling money. So it was just like everything was adding up. Couldn't keep up with the bills anymore, and I really couldn't see any light at the end of the tunnel. And so ultimately had to use the U.S. government and file for bankruptcy. And so I had to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy, which means everything gone, but completely damaging to credit and everything else. It's terrible. I wouldn't wish that experience upon anybody. So January 26, 2011 was my official filing date. And, I had less than $1,000 in the bank account, had everything repoed, like cars repoed, property. And I had been a very smart investor up until that point, and I lost everything. And like before I even got to that point, like I'm telling you, I looked for every possible solution. Like to make payroll one time, I went to a buddy with a personal credit card, and I asked him to max it out and give me the funds net of fees to be able to make payroll. So it's like and of course everybody was tight on cash at that point. Like nobody wanted to like bail out some failing business. Yeah. Right. Like I couldn't go to another investor or anything like that. Yeah. And so ultimately lost everything. The worst part about it was having to go have those conversations with my dad and my father-in-law, but more importantly, my father-in-law. Like it was very damaging to our relationship. Yeah. And my dad was a freaking all-star, rock star. He, the way. Yeah. The way that he responded to it was just like, hey, I know you'll make it right. Yeah. And where my father-in-law was not the same. Yeah. And the sad thing was like the 200 grand to my dad was worth a whole lot more than the $1 million to my father-in-law. Mm-hmm. But for next 5 or 6 years, me and my father-in-law, we didn't barely talk. Family gatherings were terrible. Yeah. Jeez. The relationship with my dad never suffered a bit. And so that was cool. And, so that was in 2011. So that was just, almost 11 years ago. Well, so almost 12 years ago. In January, it'll be 12 years. And then from there, it was, how do I rebound from this? And at that point in my life, I had two choices to make, right? Like either give up, go back to school, get a real job, go become a doctor or whatever, or take all the lessons that I learned up until that point and use them as as a foundation for the rest of my life. And you know, I give glory to God that I chose the second, and you know, immediately stepped right back into entrepreneurship. Took all the lessons that I learned, built several businesses. Initially, when I started, so immediately I started the same business, same type of business with Daryl, but we didn't scale it very fast because I was scared of scale.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, so in that moment, I mean, were you having self-doubt? Or did that never waver for you?
I never had self-doubt. I had self-deception at different points, right? Like, I knew at that point, like, what I had done wrong and what I could change.
Yeah.
Right. And that if I could just get out of that circumstance, I could make it right. And so immediately, like I said, we started another business. It was another home security business. We built it up. We no longer relied upon third-party people to buy our contracts. Mm-hmm. We raised some in-house funds and in-housed our own alarm contracts.
Okay.
And then we ended up selling off that business, made a little bit of money, nothing crazy. But I went through kind of the serial entrepreneur of like just figuring out what works and what didn't work for the next few years, all kinds of different things. I owned a search engine optimization company. I owned a medical alert company, a home security company, a coupon book company. I flipped cars. I flipped houses. I owned cattle. I owned bees. I owned like just all kinds of crazy shiz.
I heard the SEO company was a kind of interesting story as well.
Yeah, that was a cool one. Who told you this?
We do our research here.
Yeah. No, seriously, who told you?
The Sydney, actually, before we when we were setting up, she said that was an interesting story.
Yeah, so Daryl and I, when we were owning our home security company, we were like, dude, I don't want to be in door-to-door sales anymore. This sucks. And so Daryl had decided to go get his nighttime MBA at WSU Tri-Cities.
Okay.
And after like halfway through a quarter, he decided to drop out. He's like, that sucks. Like, why did I think that was going to be a good idea? But during that time, we credit one of his professors. Somebody brought up in class, hey, what do you think about this book, The 4 Hour Work Week? And the professor was like, oh, that's stupid. Da, 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 da. And someone was like, no, I think it's a pretty good idea. But anyways, it's because the professor hated it, Daryl's like, let's read that.
That makes sense.
And so we both, that's actually when I started my love for reading, so that was in end of 2011, and started reading a bunch of books. The 4 Hour Work Week, I read it. I was already fascinated with SEO, so I decided to start an SEO company based off of Tim Ferriss's methodologies of the 4 Hour Work Week.
Yeah.
And so I built up systems, went and landed some huge contracts, one with like a multi-billion-dollar company. It was crazy. It was like, I had this personal connection. He's like, what are you doing now? And I was like, I started an SEO company, and I hadn't yet. I was planning on it. And I'm like, I think you guys need SEO. He's like, yeah, I think we do. I'm like, yeah. Anyway, so landed a few big contracts, and then I set it up with like Filipinos, Indians, and all kinds of people outsourced, where I was only sending one email a month, and I was collecting more than enough money to cover all my bills and everything. Wow. And so it was just a nice residual business, but then I got bored and like just kind of tired of just paying the bills and just, making more and not doing a whole lot with my life, as I was trying all these other things too. But
so you're doing all these, so you're doing all these different businesses, and is that, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's bankrolling the security company?
No. We, believe it or not, I was able to convince another investor.
Sales.
He sells ice to Eskimos, man.
You can't take away the sales skills, right?
So I'm just like, this time it's different. But it was different. The guy wasn't investing in the company; he was investing in the accounts, right? So instead of us selling these off, we were keeping them in house and collecting that monthly residual from these customers.
Got it.
For monthly monitoring. And so anyways, that's how we were bankrolling the business.
Okay.
yeah, so we were building up an equity asset and then doing these other things. But yeah.
Sweet. And so, okay, so where does Solgen come in? Where's this gap? There's this gap, right? In between.
Yeah. So in summer of 2012, I am kind of just bored with life. It's cool, but it's not that fulfilling.
Yeah.
And my brother Tony is selling for a company called Pinnacle Security. And he's like, dude, come out and sell them or summer. I was like, screw you. I am never knocking another door again.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and on top of that, I've owned my own businesses. I'm not going back to work for somebody else.
Yeah.
And so he ends up convincing me, like, dude, just do it for one more. And like, initially I went back to work with them based on, like, I wanted to prove to myself that I could perform at the highest level with one of the largest companies. And then on top of that, Tony needed some good influence in his life. And I was like, all right, this adds up, hits all the different things. And so ended up going out. I sold one more summer for a company called Pinnacle. That summer I came in with like a whole different mindset coming from being an owner, right? And that year I made $280,000 in 4 months. Won a Range Rover in a sales competition.
There you go.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother story. Of like, I mean, can you imagine?
Kind of curious about that, honestly.
Yeah, can you imagine having a freaking Range Rover on a competition? Like that is. It was a 256 man bracket that I ended up winning, and it was dope. But
What color?
it was white, so white with black rims, and it had a black top on it. Yeah, it was dope.
Nice.
And it was like the new style back then in 2012.
Oh yeah,
It was cool. And so did that, and then for the next few years, what I did was I was like, okay, I sold off my SEO company. I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna run any more businesses. I'm gonna continue to invest in real estate, but I'm gonna go and I'm gonna work for other people with the only with one objective, and it was this: get paid education and understand how people were scaling at a massive level. Yeah. And so what I did is I spent the next 4 years, including 2012, studying CEOs of high growth businesses, working for them on executive level positions, doing different things, just studying their every move. Everyone was there to get a paycheck, not me. Like, if I got paid, that would be fantastic. But more importantly, I needed to learn exactly what I needed to do to go and build this business right here, Solgen. And so that's what I did for the next 4 years. And in 2000, so I was a part of. So I worked for Vivint in 2013, 2014. I switched over to their solar division. I participated in their IPO, Vivint Solar's IPO.
Okay.
And then the next year, my buddy started a business in which they were a sales dealer for Sunrun, who's the largest solar company in the nation. And we built that and he recruited me to come be his VP of Human Capital. And what I did was I basically recruited and built. So I took the principles that I'd used or learned from these other two companies over these 3 years, and I came and applied them to my buddy's business. And in 2 years flat, we built that from 0 to 28 locations. And we were doing 50% of all Sunrun's volume. Sunrun went public that year. I was on Wall Street standing next to the CEO of Sunrun the day they went public. And so like that was a incredible experience. And then ultimately, so I finished up essentially 5 years of education working for these other businesses. And then I was kind of like Jordan, where I was like, all right, I've done everything I need to do. Yeah. I'm walking away. And I walked away. People were flabbergasted because I was like the highest paid employee. I was making $500,000 a year. I had promises of this, that, and the other. But I had learned everything that I needed to learn from those organizations. And I knew that I was ready to figure out what the next step was. And so that was the end of 2016. Do you want to know the rest of the story?
Yeah.
All right, it's crazy. It gets crazier.
Yeah. I mean, shoot. I mean, you're walking away from that deal. You just believe in yourself after. I mean, just listen to your story. I mean, going through what you went through, right? Having that, those tough conversations. The business didn't pan out how how the spreadsheet had it, and you know,
Hell of a rebound. Honestly.
Building yourself up. You're doing a lot of people's dreams, and then just walking away. That's huge already.
I take you over Rodman right now.
Appreciate it. So the next thing before Solgen was one last failure that I needed to chalk up.
Yeah, just needed to check it off.
I needed one more.
Yeah,
right? And so I walk away November of 2016 from this incredible opportunity, right? And so one of the reasons I walked away is I saw this opportunity with this new state-of-the-art energy product.
Okay.
And so what I fondly refer to now as the magic generator. And so this generator ran off rare earth magnets and solar, and it was very unique. There was only one prototype. There was nothing deployed, and it was going to change the way that energy was created in the world. And I was convinced it was. And it was amazing. Like, I spent a lot of money hiring some high-end engineers, come in, check this thing out down in California, like verify it's legit. And it's like, it checked all the boxes. And so then I went to work on a high growth empire. In 6 months, get this, 6 months, I built a team and we sold $2 billion in contracts for this product.
Okay, all right, there you go.
$2 billion.
$2 billion.
Yeah. Guess how much I made? It's pretty sick.
How much?
0. But it was crazy. So in a matter of 6 months, like, I realized the incredible power of networking. Like, if I believed in something so much, what I could go, like, up until that point, I was always confident. I always believed in everything I did. But this thing, man, I believed so much, right, in it. And because of it, I networked to the highest levels. Like, dude, I mean, we're talking crazy crap. I was sitting with, like, we were doing work for the royal family, like putting stuff on the Buckingham Palace.
Okay. Wow.
The president of the World Boxing Council, like, he and I were on, we were texting and calling on a regular basis, meeting up, because that guy is connected to 180 different presidents and prime ministers throughout the world.
Wow.
So made connections. Like, we sat with the prime minister of Congo. Like, we, like, dude, like,
all right,
dude. I mean, we're talking just like the craziest, like, people that killed people, like, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, the money talks, right? I guess.
People with blood on their hands.
People with blood on their hands. It's crazy. And meanwhile we're inking these contracts. We have the financing all lined up, and the manufacturer doesn't come through. And I spent probably $250,000 on, like, travel and just, like, building this thing, this facade. And but like I said, the thing that I learned most from that experience was, like, if I believe in something, how incredibly big I can take it in a very short time.
Yeah.
And so that was, like,
6 months.
That was inspiring.
Yeah.
And so from there, I've never been one to just, like, sit back and live off of savings, because I spent $250,000 there, and I had, of course, other savings and investments and everything, but I've never just been one to, like, live off that. So meanwhile, I'm also lining up sales contractors with the install contractors on the solar side, making a rip, consulting businesses. I went out and knocked doors for, like, 6 weeks out in Rhode Island in the middle of the snow, like in February, because they had, like, a crazy incentive going on out there. And so I'm like, screw it, I'll do whatever.
Yeah.
I'm down for whatever it takes at any moment. And I think I made $120,000 in 30 days out there. And so I got all these different things going on. The generator isn't panning out. And up until this point, I had spent money only from education, books and a couple, like, seminars, but I never spent, like, real money on, like, coaching. And there was this program that came across, saw it on my Facebook feed, and it was like, learn how this guy made $1 million in 90 days.
Yeah.
And it was, like, through Facebook ads. I'm like, that sounds dope.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And so And so I was like $2,500 for the program. I'm like, I've never spent $2,500 on anything like that's just like fluff.
Yeah, right.
You know? And so I called up Daryl. I'm like, hey, it wasn't even his money, but I was like, just so you know, I'm spending this money. He's like, yeah, sure, whatever. He didn't care. Me and Daryl, meanwhile, had worked for all these companies together. And anyway, so I dropped $2,500. I spend the next 6 weeks working 14 hours a day learning Facebook advertising. And this was a point in there was nobody doing it in the solar industry. There was nobody doing it in all these industries. And so I learned how to Facebook advertise through drop shipping. And I was drop shipping defense flashlights and teeth whitener throughout the world. And dude,
no, I know
They were hot items.
dude, the UK, they love teeth whitener. I don't know what it is. But anyway, so I and then afterwards I'm like, what am I doing selling $50 products when I could be selling $30,000, $40,000 solar systems? And so then I started generating leads and I sold them off to a couple companies. They're like, oh, these are awesome. And so then it kind of came to where we were really frustrated with some of the subcontractors we were working with on the install side. Just all these things kind of came to a head, and it was like, all right, we're going to launch a solar company, and we're going to do it a few ways. One, we're going to own the whole thing vertically. We're going to do the installs. We're going to do the sales. We're going to do the marketing. We're not going to knock a freaking door. Like, screw that. I'm never knocking another door in my life. And we're going to do it. So we're going to do it through Facebook marketing. And so that's the premise that we built it off of. And so we launched that thing October. We celebrate our birthday on November 1st, but like we filed all the paperwork and stuff October 2017. And we started launching that out of my garage. And so that was, and then I had a bunch of other core philosophies and theories that I had learned from these different CEOs along the way that I applied from day one and applied it. And fast forward 5 years, here we are.
Wow.
Insane.
That's crazy. That's a crazy story. Jeez.
There's so much in between. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't even tell you like a tenth of it.
Yeah, I mean, I know. I'm trying to figure what did I miss? I mean, what are those?
I hate the thing I hate about telling that story is like even telling it at the very high level, it's like way too long.
No, I think it's good for viewers though and everyone listening.
I think
Us
it's
too.
great because I mean, to some people, it's like this entrepreneur got money. Oh, it didn't work out, and then he just figured it out, and then the business just happened. But like, I mean, from everything that we've heard, I mean, you put in the work, you built your resume.
Yeah.
Dang.
I think that's something you see all the time, and you see all this, the headlines, the ads, like make $1 million doing just this, but it's like people don't know the details. People don't know what it takes to get there.
Or the mastermind courses.
Yeah.
Be a millionaire in 30 days.
Exactly. Yeah. They don't know the hard work and the effort that needs to be put in.
Well, and when I say fast forward 5 years of Solgen, right? Like there's a lot to
Right?
that.
I mean, yeah.
We operated the first 2.5 years out of my garage, and bigger shop than most, but I mean that was our headquarters up until 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And we were very scrappy, very like nimble. Like I did everything day one. I was running equipment out to installers. I was making sales late at night, doing admin work during the day. I mean, there's so much behind there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. You start as, and you start. I mean, geez, yeah. There's so many different questions I have, to be honest. It's like, I mean, what is that? So it's just you and Daryl.
So Daryl and I were the founding partners along with Robbie Clyde.
Okay.
So Daryl and I have always had control over the business. From a decision making in a majority equity position.
Yeah.
But on top of that, so over the years, we've attracted very high level talent, and this is one of the things that I learned from different organizations I worked with through equity positions. So like we just closed on a private equity deal that was valued in multiple nine figures, and with that. There was 12 different people that were made multimillionaires on that deal.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, sweet.
When you're scaling up a business, how do you decide to hire somebody to how do you decide to delegate a certain duty to somebody? Is it their discipline? Is it their sense of belief? Are they pitching you new ideas that make you like
when you
about
decide to hire?
Yeah.
Yeah. So hiring is just based off of need of the business. It's not, we're at a point now that yes, we're always hiring the right people. It isn't necessarily because we have that need, but early on it's all about need. Right. So the best way to grow any business is start with a 5-year plan and build an org chart based off of that 5-year plan. Right. So your 5-year plan, okay, I want to make so much money. What is the margin I need to make? So equals how much revenue. If it's call it $100 million in revenue, what can an average sales rep sell? And so I need that many sales reps to be at 100 million. And for every 5 to 7 people, I need a manager, and to be able to fulfill on the install side, and so you backfill that right to whatever your goal is. And so then you have this org chart of like my 5-year plan. Now each seat in that org chart is a hat initially, that if it's you and a partner and there's 500 seats on there, you each are wearing 250 hats. And it's as you justify enough through additional revenue, additional need, not enough time, don't have enough bandwidth, then you take a hat or 10 hats and you pass them on to a new person, and you now have this part of the org chart or whatever it may be. And so it's essentially a growth map that you create and you work backwards into it.
Gotcha. Another question I had was, I don't come from money, so I don't have nobody to go ask anymore for money. But
me neither. I don't come from money either.
You said your father-in-law helped you though, right?
So he invested, but he's not a businessman. He was a farmer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, everything I learned in business is in a straight hustle.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Hustling books, education, paying money to coaches. Like my dad and my father-in-law are not businessmen.
Gotcha. So what I was going to get with that was for somebody that doesn't come from any money or has nobody to ask for money, what is your thoughts on like taking a credit line and building a business off of that?
Absolutely. The worst thing I ever did was take money. It was a great learning experience, but I mean, this business was built completely bootstrapped, Solgen, right? Like I didn't go and get investors. I didn't go and I didn't have like super deep bank accounts to reach into. I have a credit card, but create a business that can sustain itself. Don't go into like deep amounts of debt in hopes to sustain itself. Like go figure out how to sell a product. If the product sells, then go and figure out how to fulfill on it. It's really is that simple. Like your product or service, go test market, see if it actually sells. Don't go invest in a bunch of money on the operations and making sure you can produce the product and everything else if you're not even sure you can sell it. Right. So go do this, and this will fund this.
You have to make sure the product is proven basically in the market.
Well, just prove it in the market, but just more importantly that you can do it.
Are there any products that, or even services that, looking back, maybe you wish you sold, or some new ideas that you have? I know you're super busy and all
I
that.
have a million, I've done coaching and stuff. Like there's been times where I've sold coaching and consulting. I used to sell, I would do one phone call a week for 6 months and charge somebody $50,000. Or, there's those type of things. You can make money doing whatever you want. Whatever you're passionate about, you can figure out a way to make money. You just got to be really passionate about it and really committed to the process.
Yeah.
That's a good point that you bring up, and that kind of leads me to one question I had. So I found this clip on YouTube. It was an interview you did about, I don't know, 3 years ago or so, but you were talking about mantras.
Okay.
Can't talk right now. That you had, and it was to what would you do if you had no fear, and then
just do it and figure out how later.
Do it and figure out how later. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, 3 years down the line, do you still hold those to be true?
So the mantra number one, absolutely. You operate from a best position if you just move the fear aside, right? Like, because fear holds us back. Fear keeps us from taking action. Like, what is the action you would take if you knew you could not fail, right? Like, that's the action that you need to do. And that's why a lot of my successes later in life, like I had set up like some baselines that allowed me never to fear about failure, and then just be able to focus on like what would happen if it went to the next level. So that for sure. Just do it and figure out how later. That's a great startup mindset. But in the way that my business operates now, I can't afford to live by that mantra, right? Like I got to figure out how, and then do it. Cause we're much bigger and have bigger targets on our backs or whatnot. And so you can break laws and all kinds of other things that, could have negative, but anybody that's starting out, abso-freaking-lutely, that's got to be the mantra you live by.
Well, how are we on time?
We're at an hour and 10 minutes.
All right.
I think it's roughly an hour because I started recording before you guys started. But, I can tell us a little bit about the future of Solgen and what that looks like maybe next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, you bet. So, do you want to ask that question?
No, I mean, this isn't your mother's daytime television show. You know,
Just whatever. The cameraman can.
Yeah, cameraman. Yeah, he jumps in.
Yeah.
Dope. Yeah. So, I mean, the future. So we have big plans for Solgen. Real excited about where things are going. And, so over the last 6 months, I vetted out 16 different solar companies for potential acquisitions. And, I've seen financials and the way that a lot of these companies run business and I am convinced that there are very few businesses like ours out there, in the fact that from the theories, philosophies, the way we build business, the way we incentivize growth, who we pay, how we pay, our offering to our customers and whatnot, most companies suck at running business. And so I am convinced that the theory that we build our business on is the one that is going to win out in the solar industry. And so I love solar, and I believe that will probably be our strategy for as long as I can think. Our strategy could change. The thing with Solgen has always been, I'm building a culture, and my strategy so happens to be solar. And so with that, in the solar industry, like I'm excited about where we're going. I really think that there's going to be a massive consolidation over the next 3 to 5 years in the solar industry, similar to the car manufacturing of like the 40s and 50s. Back then there were like a couple thousand car manufacturers, and you fast forward and there's like 11. And so same thing is going to happen in the solar industry. There's going to be massive consolidation, especially in the regional players and up. A lot will be squoze out, some will be rolled up. And I believe there will be 5 to 10 main players in the next 3 to 5 years. And not only do we plan on being one of those, we plan on being the industry leader. And I'm confident in that one. Like more than I have ever been in anything in my life, more than when I was sitting down with Prime Minister of freaking Congo, right? Like, or these guys. Like I am confident that we're going to take over this industry. And so, yeah, it's exciting stuff. And what does the exact path look like for that? Not exactly sure. The next 12 to 18 months, we're going to heavily look into an IPO, like completing an IPO in the next 12 to 18 months. Yeah. And so, I mean, to give you an idea, like I had calls with the New York Stock Exchange last week and different things like that. Great. But I mean, that's the current target. It could look differently. It could be that, a strategic partner decides to come and partner up with us and cut a big check or whatever it may be. There's a lot of different ways that could get to the ultimate outcome that we desire, right? So there's going to be many events. We're going to respond in different ways. And,
yeah. No, that's a good answer.
You think you can get the Off-Light boys on that deal?
The
IPO before we launch?
There will
make
be
a trip to New York.
Make us some millionaires too.
Hey, there will definitely be some friends and family offerings there for sure, especially for my guy Bailey over here. So.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's dope.
So I mean, let's I mean, we only have a little bit of time left, but huh?
I have more questions.
Do you have a question? I have some questions too. I have some fun questions too.
Do you have a mentor still?
So I love paying for coaches. I haven't paid for a coach in a year or two, but I do have guys that are doing some pretty cool things. Like, so I'm really good friends with Alex Hermosi. We met a few years back and we've stayed in touch. I've had him up to my cabin for a few days. Him and his wife Layla are fantastic. Russell Brunson is a stud. I'm good friends with him. He's built a multi-billion-dollar software company. I got another buddy, Dan Caldwell. He was the founder of Tap Out, the UFC clothing brand back in the day. So he's a homie of mine. He's building a new business with his with another friend, Sean Whalen. It's a clothing brand called Lions Not Sheep, and so they're building that. I got just a lot of different connections that I stay in contact with. I like to go. I either speak at a conference or attend a conference once a quarter. Is usually kind of my flow, and that's where I network, and that's where my network is much bigger outside of the Tri-Cities than it is in the Tri-Cities. And so I was on the phone, so I'm looking at bringing on the former CFO of Wells Fargo as a board advisor right now. So I've shared a number of conversations with that guy. Like, this guy was a CFO over 300,000 employees. Our current board of directors, we just brought on Paul Winowski, who's the former president of Sunrun, which is the largest solar company in the nation. So I have a number of different mentors. Some people where I just study their books. I've never met James Clear, but love his book Atomic Habits. One of my favorite books. You'll see on my desk I have like 20 copies of it. I give it out as a gift because it's been a life changer for me.
So early on, do you think it's important for someone in business to have a mentor?
Absolutely. Like, if I could do it over again, I would have spent more money sooner on mentors and coaches and programs. Because that's really what accelerated a lot of my experience. And there's several different ways that you can do that. You can either pay for it or you can work for it, right? So like, working for a mentor is one of the best things that you can do. Like, I did that for 5 years. I worked for, Todd Peterson, CEO of Vivint, absolute bad A. Like, just his core philosophies on doing business is what I built a lot of what we do at Solgen around.
What do you think separates you from a small business owner and like where you're at? Like, is it the understanding of business, or is it your imagination and what you believe can happen with business?
Yeah, so I think my unique gift to the world is as a visionary. Like, I can see things in the future of and a clear path on how to get there. So like, a lot of people are like, did you ever imagine Solgen being like this? And I'd be like, yeah, day one. And usually that answer like surprises people. I'm like, no, like this building and where we're at and like exactly what we're doing, not exactly, but 97%, like, I planned on happening. And so I think most people don't operate from a point of visionary. Either one, they're not one, or two, they don't have one on their team and they need one to really be. And most people are just kind of satisfied with having a job, right? And as a business owner, most business owners don't own a business. They have a business that owns them, right? And so from day one, the way I was setting up my business was to own and influence a business that was going to change people's lives. And so I think that's the other big differentiator is like, I don't look at us as a solar company. I look at it as Solgen as a culture. And like, the culture of Solgen is building a brighter future for our people. And that's through helping people become better fathers, husbands, daughters, sisters, brothers, contributors to society, spiritually, from an association standpoint, from a physique standpoint, like becoming the whole human, right? Because I believe if I can help the people that work here that are part of the Solgen team achieve that, we're going to go and achieve incredible things for our secondary customer, which is our end user of solar.
You literally said everything my mentor has been telling me. So that's great to hear.
Cool.
Can you be afraid of success?
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the biggest fears that any big achiever has to overcome, right? Like, so I'm scared of success all the time. Like that's the, and we have self-limiting beliefs that keep us from success, right? Like we hold ourselves back because of that. Yeah.
Another question I have is, so, and I want to get your take on what the perspective is, but it seems like the left, and I'm talking politics, has like this anger almost towards capitalism, and excelling in business. What do you feel that's coming from?
Oh, do you want to know like my deep feelings?
I honestly do. I have good friends of mine that that are on the left, and I have good friends that are on the right, and they both have different.
I think a lot of it stems from their belief in God, but so I believe that God is the ultimate entrepreneur, and so if you think about it, right? So the world was created, and there's a big focus in the Bible on the creation. Like we as human beings were meant to create. Right? Like creation is where real joy and fulfillment comes to place. I've never met somebody that suffers from anxiety or depression that is actively creating ever. Right?
Yeah.
And so, and the interpretation of creation is the one thing that the left does not understand. Okay? And they do not understand that it isn't what is being created, but the actual creator that is valuable. Right.
Got it.
And so when you talk like going from, I mean, dude, there's so much here, but when you're talking about creation, right? The left wants to look at what's created, and they're like, it's not fair that person has that thing, right? That much money, they're a multi-billionaire, nobody needs that much money, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so they want to go and they want to try this. Okay, let's distribute what was created. Okay.
Yeah.
But what they don't understand is the only way to make life fair, what they're really is you'd have to distribute the ability to create. Mm-hmm. Right. And so because you can take what's created and distribute it and give it 3 years, we're going to be exactly the same exact place because you didn't take away the creator's ability to create. Right. And so like it's not what we have, it's who we are becoming and the ability that we have to create. And so that's the thing that's like, for me, like take all my possessions. I don't care. Like all the cool things I have in my office, sweet watches, real estate, like literally you could take it to zero tomorrow. I'd be pissed momentarily, but I'd be fine because guess what? I would still be able to create. Like you're not taking away who I am.
Yeah.
And the left just doesn't understand that, right? Like you cannot redistribute that crap. And it's only something that can be learned and something that developed and really, I believe, with the true understanding of God.
Yeah. It's a good answer.
I haven't heard that perspective before, but I love it. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think is going to happen in this next election cycle? What needs to happen?
Oh my gosh.
We might need a part 2 for that.
Yeah. Man, when Trump lost, I like gave up on politics. I was just like, this is such a fraud.
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna tell me a guy that can barely hold a normal conversation.
Who we talk about here?
Somehow got 10 million votes more than the first black president ever in the United States. Come on, dude. Obama got 70 million votes. 70. Trump in this last election got 73 million. Beat Obama when he had the record-setting most votes ever. So got the black vote, got everyone out, got everybody, right? Yeah. 70 million. Trump beat that.
Yeah.
And somehow still lost by 7 million votes. BS. And so, dude, when that crap happened, I'm just like, dude, I've lost faith in humanity.
Politics is weird though, huh? Because I mean, like some people get so tied up in it, also.
Yep.
Or do you feel like you're tied up in it? I mean, I feel like the left,
it depends. I'm passionate to the point where like that it impacts me, but I'm not passionate to stupidity, right? I don't allow it to control my relationships, right? I can have a liberal friend, and we can have good friendly banter and whatnot, and I can be like, dude, I'm a Trumper or whatever, right? But at the end of the day, it's not going to determine my relationship.
Yeah, I don't. That's the only part I really don't like is like, because I feel like people tie their personality up into politics, and so if you attack their view in one way, it's like all bets are off, and people are ready to throw hands. So.
It's like it's gotten so polarized that it's hard to sit down and just have a conversation.
Right.
I mean, even talking about it here for some people triggers them. It's just crazy, honestly, because I mean, there's good people on both sides, and it's like, I don't know.
I mean, it's debatable, but just joking. I'm just joking.
You think both sides are just lacking being objective, like when they're wrong?
Being objective? Oh,
when they're wrong.
Yes. I mean, most people on both sides of the fence are just like, CNN or Fox News told me to speak or think this way, so I think 100% this way. And like, I'm like a pretty ultra conservative. And so I would side with most things that Fox News says, but I also can think for myself and be like, no, that's stupid. Like I'm not going to buy into that crap just because Fox News said it's right. Like for example, they said, they're hiring 80,000 new IRS agents. Right. Like I look into that crap. I'm like, oh yeah, they're doing over 10 years, but the whole right is pushing like, I can't believe they just doubled the IRS. And like, Dad, no, they didn't. They didn't. Like, yes, they're going to, and it sucks. But so like, yes, having an objective view is really hurting us. Like actual real education and real information, like falsified information is destroying America.
Mm. Yeah. How do you think we solve that? How do we make critical thinkers again? Because I mean, honestly, I grew up like with a lot of different influences that made me this way, where I can be objective. But some people, like you said, their parents are on CNN, they're on Fox. How do you break that? Do you think
we go and recreate the education system? So that's like my next check mark on my list is like I have a full-fledged plan to recreate the secondary education system, like post high school. And like I'm very passionate about it. I plan on winning the Nobel Peace Prize from it. So
there you go.
Yeah.
That's huge.
You heard it here first.
Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, wow. Yeah, and then I mean the media is crazy too with all the censoring and
don't get me started.
Cancel
Twitter,
culture,
Facebook.
It's crazy, right? I mean what happened to The Voice?
It's disgusting. I got banned from Facebook the other day for something that I posted a year ago. Yeah. And it was some bot like came across it or something, and they banned me for about 24 hours, and I fought it, and then they realized, this is probably so. What it was a picture of who is it? Is it Kanye that's like in the orange jacket going like this? Like,
Kanye.
Is it Kanye? And so they had Biden on it on Kanye's face, and it was like gun-free zone, and he's like saying he agrees with like a gun-free zone, and then it had a picture of Iraq, and it said free gun zone. where they gave him, and he's like also agreeing with it.
Yeah, that's funny.
But I got banned for that. I mean, that's the craziness of cancel culture. But like, you would never see that happening on the left side, right? Like nobody with a left side view ever gets banned for jack anything.
I don't remember. I don't think I've like any, because you hear about like celebrities, right? And I don't think I mean, unless I'm wrong, I can't think of any left leaning celebrities that have been canceled. No,
they haven't. No. It's an agenda of the left. It is 100%. And I mean, the agenda of the left is pretty simple: dumb the people down and control them. Like and the problem that they hate with the right. Now, I'm not talking extreme right or whatnot, and like not everything that the right says do I agree with. But the problem with the right is that they try to share what is real, like what's actually happening, and they want to keep that from happening, and they want to blame it on the right is uneducated.
Yeah, there's that, and then there's like the right likes red meat, and like It's just weird thing. It's like such a weird world out there, isn't it? I mean, I've heard everything.
It's crazy the stance people take too. Not to shoot down the left, like guys, we're not conservative or anything. I'm whatever, but
just me.
But but it's kind of interesting the stances we take because the people pushing for this whole Ukraine war, not to get too deep into it, is like arming them is the left.
Yeah.
And who's the people trying to take the guns actively here in America?
So for me, like I said, mostly conservative, but I'm open to ideas on everything. I mean, look at me, dude. I'm a conservative guy that owns a solar company, right? Like,
there's a lot of electric cars in that parking lot,
which is hilarious because like conservatives look at it and like, oh, solar's a leftist agenda. And it's like, no, you idiot. It's actually the most right agenda thing there is. Ownership. Pay less in taxes, but it's because we put labels on everything that it's like, oh, I can't believe this because Fox News told me I can't, or CNN. It's just like it gets to people just are so ignorant. Anyways, we're probably way over time.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Well, we appreciate you for coming on.
Yeah,
Chris.
we do.
Like, thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah.
I mean, you've probably gave so many people so many good nuggets. So. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry if it was too long.
No, not too long. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you're busy and whatnot. So
yeah, thanks for fitting us in your schedule.
Okay, appreciate you guys.
So yeah, everyone like and subscribe. And thanks for tuning in. We're out.
Peace.